Hi everyone, it's Chris. I'm back today with another video. I was asked to do a little tutorial on how I added the glow behind my light bulb card that I shared the other day. So I have made a very similar card. What I did with this is I used my original Misty and I am stamping this little light bulb. This happens to be from a Brutus Monroe Stamp of the Month kit. And I stamped it 3 times onto a piece of 2-inch 3M Post-it tape just to make masks. And then I'm just trimming out the light bulb portion. I am cutting off the little hanging tab and also the little string that came with the stamp. And in fact, I decided to just do a little stamp surgery and cut it off my stamp as well. But I did save it, so if I need to put it back together in 2 pieces, I can do that. Now I am just stamping this onto a card panel. This is Hammer Mill paper, which I'm going to use for some Copic, and I stamped it with Ink on 3's Fade Out ink so I can do some no-line coloring with my Copics. Now I've just randomly stamped my 3 light bulbs on the panel, and now I'm going to put those masks that I cut out right over the top. And as you can see, my masks got a little dirty. I forgot to turn the camera on for the last step, so I had to do it again. So now I'm going to add some ink. I'm going to bring in some ink. This is just dye ink. This is let's see, which color is this? Sorry, it's bubblegum ink from Gina K. And I'm using the Picket Fence Life Changing brushes to just bring in that ink. I'm just picking up the ink with my brush right from the pad, and I'm tapping off all that excess, especially on this yellow. This is Wild Dandelion, and it is really bright, so I wanted to get a lot of that excess ink off. And then I just clean my brush by rubbing it on my microfiber towel in between colors, and just to get the excess ink off those bristles. The last one I just did was Sea Glass, and now I'm bringing in some Christmas Pine ink. And this is going to be hidden behind my greenery of my tree when I stamp this. But this is how I created the glow, just by bringing that ink in with that blending brush. Now I'm going to pull these masks off and do my coloring. And I'm going to save those masks because I'm going to use them again. So now I'm going to use some Copics and color my light bulbs. So I'm starting with this pink one. I'm using the Copic colors RV21, 32, and 34. And I'm starting by kind of saturating my paper with the RV21. And then just bringing in the 32 on the edges and kind of working those two areas together in small spots. It's kind of a jump from those two colors. So I actually did a little bit of tip-to-tip blending there as well, just to kind of pull those in really well. And by working in small areas, then the color doesn't set up too much, so you can kind of pull those together. The two colors, the 21 and 32, I worked all the way around the light bulb with that before adding any of the 34. And then again, using smaller areas at a time, kind of just outlining and then kind of flicking that color in and then blending that back together with the 32 and then blending again with the 21 to make that nice and smooth. And I want to leave that center portion highlighted for the light bulb, which is inside the little glass bulb here. So there is my pink one. I did the same with yellow, and the colors I used for that were Y11, Y13, and Y15. Same thing, working in smaller areas, pulling those two colors together a little bit at a time, and then blending the 3 again with my lighter color. I will do the same thing with the kind of the turquoise light bulb. But you can see that it kind of just starts bringing that shape, the tip of the light bulb there. And the nice thing about the no-line ink, the Fade Out ink from Ink on 3, is that you don't have to be real precise on the shape of your light bulb. You can kind of go out of the lines a little bit and correct that. You can see one of my light bulbs got a little bit larger than the others as I was coloring because I had to keep covering up my mistakes here. Now, one thing I want to suggest when you are putting your glow behind your light bulbs is to work with some complementary colors next to each other, because if you're bringing in a purple light bulb next to the yellow light bulb, as those ink blending kind of pull those colors pull together, you're going to end up with brown. So just make sure that you're using some colors that are work well next to each other as you're blending those colors. Here is the turquoise light bulb. Colors I used here were BG 11, 13, and 15. And working in the same manner, just pulling the two lighter colors together and then adding that darker color last. And then just working, blending each of the colors together. The 13 into the 15 and then the 11 into the 13, so you get a nice smooth blend. And I just ran the BG11 over the whole thing just to smooth everything out. If you find that your colors got too dark, you can always use your 0 Copic marker and kind of lift some color if you've lost your highlight. Now I'm going to work on this brass color of the top of the light bulb. I am using Y31, Y26, and Y28, and I want to leave some highlight there to give it that metal look. So I'm just choosing which way I think would be the brightest and then leaving that center portion white or as light as possible. Then I'm bringing in the Y26 just a little bit on the edges just to kind of give it that shape, and leaving that area white gives you that shine so it does look kind of brassy or like it is a metal base of that light bulb. And then the Y28 is my darkest color, and I'm putting very little of that, just a little bit on the edges, just to give it a little more dimension. And then I just kind of blending them together just a tiny bit, but not really smoothing out the colors. And there is my coloring. Now I'm going to go back to my MISTI, and first I'm going to cover up those light bulbs again. You can stamp directly over the top of your light bulbs, but I wanted to do two different colors here. So I'm going to set this up in my MISTI. I have taken the mouse pad out of my MISTI because the stamp I'm using from Tailored Expressions, it's called the Pine Bough Background, is a rubber cling stamp, and I needed that depth. So then I'm just going to set that up. I'm using the grid on the bottom to line up my card base. Just in case it moves, I can set it right back on that 1/2 inch mark. Now I've stamped this with Gina K's Christmas Pine ink, and now I want to pull off those masks, and I'm going to stamp it again. This time I'm going to use slate ink from Gina K because I want that contrast of these lower pine needles against those lit up light bulbs. I want them to look darker and blacker, so I'm using the slate ink. I'm stamping it twice and really putting some pressure on there to kind of let that show up. Now I'm going to add a sentiment. This is from Winnie and Walter's Winter Woodland, and I'm just going to use this season's greetings stamp. I'm going to line this up in my MISTI. This time I have put my mouse pad back in because I don't need that extra depth. And I'm just lining that up here, and I will pick up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp that in Gina K's slate ink as well. Now I can tell that I need to trim this just a little bit, so I have used my rotor trim and trimmed it down, and I've added it to a Christmas pine card base and a little strip of gold, and then all that's left is just to draw in my cord, the wire for the needles, and I just use a G28 marker for that. So that is my finished card. Thanks for watching.